Every story begins the same. A final clash between a brave warrior and the fearsome Demon King. They face off in the ultimate battle, and as always, the warrior triumphs. The Demon King, defeated, retreats into a slumber in the pit of hell, vowing to return while the warrior ascends into legend. No one knows who first wrote this tale, but it has repeated itself time and again until now. In the present day, deep within the underground realm, a creature rushed urgently into the Demon Lord's chamber, breathless with panic. "Your Majesty, there is a problem," he announced. The king, stern and calm, inquired about the matter. The creature hesitated before responding. It was about Demiurgos. When pressed further, he finally presented a letter left behind by Demiurgos DCLXD. The king took it and read, "I don't want to be a demon king, so don't look for me, suckers." The weight of disbelief filled the room. The newly awakened heir to the throne had run away, refusing the legacy of darkness passed down through centuries. Far from the depths of hell, Demiurgos stood before the gates of Akoma Castle in the kingdom of Verde. Surveying the towering spires and lush surroundings, he mused that so this is what Earth looked like. The warmth of the surface was just as he'd heard. Lost in thought, he was interrupted by a group of guards who mocked him, demanding to know what a country oaf like him was doing prancing around their royal castle. They asked for his name. Realizing he couldn't reveal his true identity, he replied, "Deus." The name startled them. How dare he call himself after God in a sacred place like Akoma Castle? Baron Brewer, stepping forward to investigate, warned him that such arrogance would not be tolerated. Demiurgos responded with a question of his own. Was the kingdom of Akoma strong? His tone and words confused them. But what enraged the Baron most was when Demiurgos asked whether their kingdom was even worthy of a king like him. Infuriated by the insult, Baron Brewer lunged at him. But with a mere blink of an eye, Demiurgos made his head explode, showering the ground in silence and horror. Before the rest of the guards could react, he snapped his fingers just once, and all of their heads burst as well. Arrows rained down from above as castle archers joined the fray, but none even made it near him. With a second snap, they too exploded, erased from existence. Inside the castle walls, panic erupted. Reports spread that they were under siege. But it wasn't an army. It was just one man. One man who obliterated everything in his path without effort. When the elite knight of the realm appeared, he stood tall, praying fervently to his god to lend him strength against this devil. Demiurgos saw the aura surrounding the knight and found something different in him. Respectfully, he allowed the knight to pray, then lifted his hand and offered his own invocation, not to some divine figure, but to be blessed with the strength to kill the fool in front of him. As the knight struck, Demiurgos effortlessly caught his weapon and turned his prayer against him. The knight, stunned by his defeat, could only gasp before his life was extinguished. Now, standing at the gates of the royal hall, Demiurgos entered to find the king sitting on his throne. Staring at the carnage, the king could hardly believe one man had annihilated all his forces. Demiurgos, unbothered, asked if they had been waiting long. A soldier nearby shouted that he should address the king properly as "Your Majesty." However, a snap of the fingers silenced him forever. Walking slowly toward the throne, Demiurgos asked again, "Shall we continue?" The king, trying to bargain for his life, offered him wealth and power. Demiurgos, unimpressed, told him he wasn't interested in either. He wanted the throne. Alarmed, the king stammered that such a request was far too great. Demiurgos warned that if he refused, he would take his family and the throne by force. Misunderstanding his intentions, the king assumed he was after his daughter, April, the pride of the Horsey continent and the flower of the throne. But Demiurgos corrected him. He wanted only the throne, not his daughter. Confused and desperate, the king demanded how he could claim something that was not his. Demiurgos questioned his claim to ownership. Was the throne his creation? Since when had the world worked that way? The king, trying to invoke divine protection, declared that the Holy See would never allow this. But Demiurgos laughed. "Who cares about the Holy See?" he said. And with that, he burned the king to ash. The fire consumed the throne room, but Demiurgos barely exerted any effort. He looked up, disappointment washing over his face, and addressed the god who had failed to intervene. "I'm disappointed," he whispered. Just then, a shaft of light beamed down through the ruined ceiling. He looked up, understanding what it meant. He was 20 years early. It would be some time before the pure blood awakened for the day of his true coming. The cycle had repeated itself endlessly. Every time the Demon King was defeated by the hero, his soul would return to the demon world, where after countless spells and incantations, he would be resurrected again, reborn to finish what he had begun, the annihilation of humanity. But each time, he met defeat. Again and again, the same story unfolded. From the 6,665th defeat to the 66,580th, the outcome remained the same. Now, after 80 years of incubation, the newest 66,666 Demon King had emerged, only to run away before his awakening was even complete. Back among the ruins of Akoma Castle, a young woman stepped forward, her eyes blazing with anger and grief. She demanded to know what Demiurgos had done to her father, shouting, "Who the hell are you?" Demiurgos recalled the former king's words about Princess April. This had to be her. He asked her name to confirm, and when she admitted she was indeed April, he commented that this meant she was next in line for the throne, which logically meant she should be dead too. But before he could strike her down, she dropped to her knees and swore loyalty, declaring she would be his humble servant for life. Curious, Demiurgos stepped closer, remarking that she would be his first human. But just as he was about to act further, he paused, sensing someone nearby. His voice turned cold as he warned the hidden presence to step out before he scooped his eyes out. A man emerged from the shadows. It was Alex. Demiurgos immediately asked why he had followed him there. Alex replied that his pride had been wounded, and wherever his liege went, he would follow. Demiurgos reminded him that he had once worked for his father, questioning how he now considered himself his servant. But Alex explained that Demiurgos' form had changed, and that changed everything. Demiurgos, firm in his resolve, stated that he would not return to the demon world no matter what. Surprisingly, Alex didn't object. Instead, he asked if Demiurgos intended to continue with what he had been doing. Confused, Demiurgos asked what that even meant. Alex replied bluntly, asking if he wasn't planning to plant his great seed in the woman. After all, she had just offered herself in total devotion. He even reminded Demiurgos that he was the one who had once offered him his breast when he was but a baby. Embarrassed and annoyed, Demiurgos snapped that Alex had only done that because of his strange hobbies. But Alex continued, stating that he had also been his teacher, guiding him through the rigors of early education. But Demiurgos only recalled the time when he had been beaten by him senseless. He added that when Demiurgos was placed in incubation, it was he who had felt the loss the most. Demiurgos, now visibly irritated, pointed out that it had been Alex himself who had locked him in the incubation chamber in the first place. And now here he was, watching with delight as Demiurgos showed the first signs of attraction toward a woman. Alex then inquired why he had specifically attacked the kingdom of Akoma. Demiurgos replied casually that he simply wanted to live as a human and thought becoming a king would be the best way to do it. Now Demiurgos demanded him for the truth. Sighing, he finally confessed he was there to collect the child that would be born from Demiurgos in April. That child, when the time came, would be raised to become the next demon king. Stunned by the absurdity of it, Demiurgos retorted that he couldn't possibly become a father. He was 80 years old, and then, without warning, kicked Alex so hard he spiraled off into the distance. Despite the moment's absurdity, Alex noted Demiurgos' power, which was impressive, even without the completion of his full incubation. He then shared his new plan with Alex. He would find a warrior and become his companion, letting the warrior take credit while he quietly shared in the glory. Alex, unimpressed, thought to himself that this demon king was truly a dud, as how could there be a warrior if there wasn't a demon king? But all he needed from him was his power. When asked what to do with Princess April, Demiurgos told Alex to handle her himself. Alex told the princess that he would take her power away, hoping that in return she would forgive him. And with that, they both took flight, leaving the ruins behind. The journey began atop a modest horse cart, with Demiurgos lying lazily in the back, singing an off-key ballad about his grand search for a hero. As they rolled through the countryside, he turned to Alex with curiosity brimming in his voice, asking what kind of people warriors really were. Alex explained that warriors came in many ranks. There were those like the D-rank dragon slayers, G-rank giant slayers, and L-rank lich slayers. Though dragons had long become neutral, anyone powerful enough to slay one still earned the revered dragon slayer title. Beyond these special classifications, there were the standard ranks, C, B, and A, with A-rank heroes considered among the elite. Then there were the F-rank hunters, those discarded by the system, deemed powerless and unworthy. But more than just strength, a true hero needed something else, a pure blood. For the past 60,000 years, heroes had always been born from the same ancient lineage. The closer one was to the original bloodline, the stronger the hero they were. But the rarest of all were those of pure blood, considered the highest and most potent class of heroes. As the cart rolled along, Demiurgos stared out in wonder, asking about every little thing they passed: the fluttering of butterflies, the gentle sway of wind, and the warm rays of the sun. These were things he had never experienced in the dark, molten depths of the demon world. The vibrant colors of the earth, its scents, its energy, all left him captivated. So enchanted was he that he began to wonder aloud whether the world even needed a demon king. The more he saw, the more he questioned his role in it. Eventually, tired of thinking, He told Alex he would rest and asked to be woken when they reached their destination. When Demiurgos finally stirred, they had arrived at the village of Zorix, a small, peaceful town tucked away from the chaos of the world. But peace, it seemed, was fragile. The first thing they heard upon entering was the grim news that Traer Castle, located nearby, had been nearly destroyed by a dragon. Demiurgos immediately turned to Alex with a skeptical glance, reminding him of what he had said earlier about dragons now being neutral. Alex, trying to steer them away from trouble, suggested they avoid the area entirely, since the presence of a dragon likely meant that an A-rank warrior was already on the scene. They headed to a local inn and asked for the best suite available. The innkeeper initially laughed them off, but when they placed a handful of stolen jewels, spoils from Akoma Castle, on the counter, the staff's demeanor changed instantly. Now seen as nobility, they were given royal treatment. A man named Zeke von Holovich was summoned to escort them to their suite. Despite his politeness, Zeke apologized for the quality of the room, believing it unworthy of such prestigious guests. But before they could settle in, a commotion broke out outside. The village was under attack. Sensing something unusual in Zeke, Demiurgos turned to him and asked if he was of pure blood. Zeke admitted that he belonged to a noble bloodline that was nearly wiped out. But despite his heritage, he was nothing more than an F-rank hunter. Intrigued, Demiurgos saw potential in him and proposed a partnership. Zeke would become a warrior, and Demiurgos would be his companion. Zeke hesitated, but the weight of his family's financial burdens, especially after losing his parents, pushed him to accept the offer. He agreed, even if it meant making a soul-binding pledge. Pleased, Demiurgos decided they should make their grand debut by slaying a dragon. Zeke, shocked, asked if they shouldn't perhaps start with something simpler, like goblins. Demiurgos, now going by the name Master Deus, turned to Zeke with a gleam in his eyes and proposed that they formalize their partnership through a binding contract. With a dramatic flair, he began reciting the clauses, each one heavily skewed in his favor. The terms were laughably one-sided, granting Deus full authority while saddling Zeke with nearly all responsibilities and risks. Yet, the promise of glory, riches, and a legendary future dangled before Zeke like bait. Naive and eager to escape the obscurity of an F-rank hunter, Zeke accepted the offer. Following the instructions, he spoke his name aloud to seal the contract, and thus, an official bond was forged between Zeke von Holovich and Master Deus. Watching the scene unfold, Alex couldn't help but interject, "You do realize no ordinary human can kill a dragon, right?" he said, his tone dry and skeptical. Deus, undeterred, waved off the concern and outlined his master plan. He instructed Alex to fly up, confront the dragon himself, defeat it, and then drop its corpse right in front of Zeke. The idea was simple. Zeke would take the credit, emerging as the hero who had slain the beast. Alex raised another concern. People would never believe that an F-rank hunter had managed to kill a dragon. It would raise questions, draw suspicion, and ruin the illusion. Moreover, Zeke's appearance was far too clean and forgettable to stand out. Deus grinned at the problem and without hesitation, tore Zeke's shirt clean off, throwing the tattered remains over his shoulders. Now left in only his undergarments, Zeke shivered in both embarrassment and confusion. Deus then plopped a battered cooking pot with holes over his head and declared it his new identity. He would now be known as the Mask Hero. To complete the absurd transformation, Deus handed Zeke an old broomstick. "This," he declared with utmost seriousness, "is your Excalibur." But as Zeke grabbed the broom, something unexpected happened. The moment the makeshift weapon made contact with his pure bloodline, it triggered a hidden reaction. Heroic instincts, long dormant, stirred to life. For a fleeting moment, an overwhelming desire to destroy the Demon King in front of him surged through him, but knowing Deus' true identity, he was easily lured to promises of fame and fortune that clouded his thoughts recently. He suppressed the impulse, choosing instead to obey Master Deus. Meanwhile, high above, Alex confronted the dragon. Suspicious, he questioned the beast, reminding it of the pact dragons had made with humanity long ago. To his shock, the dragon replied in the forbidden tongue. It spoke of a prophecy, of something ancient that had foretold its return. The revelation unsettled Alex. This wasn't a rogue beast. Something far more sinister was at play. The townspeople had gathered to witness the spectacle from their windows. They watched in disbelief as unknown person, now wearing nothing but scraps, a pot on his head, and wielding a broom, marched toward the dragon. Could he really be a warrior, they whispered, or just a pervert in disguise? No one knew what to make of him, but fear and desperation in Zorix had blurred the lines between dignity and survival. Deus, with arms crossed and voice brimming with mock encouragement, shouted, "Go, Mask Hero! Save the people of Zorix!" But as the moments dragged on, Deus grew restless. Standing alone, he looked to the skies impatiently. "What's taking so long?" he muttered. "People are waiting for a hero to rise, and here we are wasting time. One could hatch a whole dragon in this span." High above the village, Alex was beginning to understand that what he faced was no ordinary dragon. Every technique he hurled at the beast, his infamous demon of 100 hands, his 1,000-blade barrage, proved utterly useless. The more he fought, the more the dragon's strange, dark tendrils twisted around him, binding tighter with every movement. They seared into his skin, and in the blink of an eye, the right side of his face was scorched, charred beyond recognition. Gritting his teeth, Alex realized this creature was something far more sinister than he had anticipated. Whatever prophecy the dragon had spoken of, it was already beginning to unfold. On the ground below, Deus raised his voice and called out to Zeke, "Defect! It's time! Get ready!" Panic overtook Zeke's face, and in a trembling voice he shouted back, "I don't want to die." But Deus, unshaken, swore on his good name that he would protect him. All Zeke had to do was wait for the moment the dragon fell and then strike. Despite the fear, Zeke slowly shifted into position. The moonlight shimmered over him, casting a pale glow as he steadied the broom, his so-called Excalibur. In that moment, memories rushed in. He remembered his father training him while demonstrating the very technique Zeke now prepared to use. Moonlight shimmer. Zeke had asked him once why they trained so rigorously when neighboring clans said they would never fight the Demon King again. His father, Resolute, replied that their family came from a sacred warrior lineage. No matter what the world believed, he had to be ready, for evil would always return, and the blood in their veins demanded vigilance. Now, the people of Zorix screamed in terror as the dragon descended from the sky like a comet of darkness. Mothers clutched their children, urging them toward the underground shelters, while the chaos in the village spread like wildfire. Yet, in the heart of the storm, Zeke stood unmoving, eyes locked on the descending beast. And when the dragon's massive form crashed into the ground, Zeke launched forward. With every ounce of strength he had, Zeke executed Moonlight Shimmer, and in one graceful sweep, he struck the dragon with precision. Then came the final blow. Channeling every instinct awakened by his pure blood, he unleashed the Doom's Guillotine, followed by a devastating Demon King slash. The dragon's flesh parted mid-air, cleaved cleanly in two. Blue blood erupted from the beast, covering Zeke from head to toe. For a heartbeat, the village fell silent, then cheers burst forth like a tidal wave. Cries of joy, awe, and disbelief echoed from every corner. Zeke, standing in the midst of the slain dragon dripping with the blue blood of victory, was no longer just an F-rank hunter. He had become a hero. Amidst the celebration, a weak cough drew Zeke's attention. Turning, he saw Master Deus leaning heavily on one knee, coughing into his hand. With a tired smile, Deus gestured to him. "Go change, quickly. Hide your identity." Zeke nodded and vanished. Meanwhile, above them, Alex hovered weakly in the air, his face torn and burning, his mind reeling not from the pain but from a single terrifying realization. The prophecy was true. The long-believed dead had returned. The next morning, Deus awoke to the warm caress of sunlight streaming through the window, basking in its unfamiliar but pleasant sensation. He sat up with a stretch, clearly refreshed after a long and satisfying sleep. Alex, standing at his side, presented him with a steaming cup of coffee, following what he explained was the custom in the human world. Deus accepted it with intrigue, lifting the cup to his lips and taking a slow sip. A faint smile played across his face. "I like the taste of this," he said thoughtfully. Alex, arms crossed proudly, replied, "I added a dragon tongue and a drop of its left eyeball. It's what gives it that rich aroma." Before Deus could respond, the door burst open and in stumbled Zeke, battered and covered in bruises. He looked exhausted but strangely energetic. "The entire village is going crazy," he said. "Everyone's trying to find the masked hero. They want to crown him the village savior." Deus raised an eyebrow and asked, "And what happened to you?" Zeke told him. "Well, since the village was half in ruins after the dragon attack, I've been helping out as they're paying decent wages." Once outside, Deus sat silently, observing the hustle and bustle that had overtaken Zorix. His eyes followed Zeke, who was running from task to task, being pulled in all directions by grateful villagers. Deus watched thoughtfully, and for a moment he felt something stir within him. "Everyone's working, helping each other," he muttered. Then his gaze fell on Zeke again, and a flicker of memory crossed his mind. He remembered the boy's words about his past, grave digging, working as a laundry boy, even serving drinks at a disreputable inn, and all for the sake of survival. He had lived a life of hardship but never gave up. Now, as his sponsor, Deus told himself he wouldn't back down either. He liked it here. Maybe this truly was the beginning of his life as a human, as the human known as Deus. Turning to Alex, Deus suggested, "Let's go sell the dragon's hide. It's said to be worth a fortune." But Alex scratched the back of his neck and replied, That won't be possible. The Warrior Guild confiscated it. Deus's face fell flat. Then let's go attack the Warrior Guild and take it back. Alex's eyes widened in alarm. Wait, didn't you say you wanted to become a hero's companion? If you destroy the Warrior Guild, how will Zeke ever become an official warrior? That's where he has to register. Deus paused mid-stride. The logic, while annoying, was sound. He sighed heavily, signaling his reluctant agreement. Alex, meanwhile, let out a long breath of relief. No matter how powerful his liege was, he doubted even Deus could go to war with the entire guild and come out unscathed. Still unwilling to give up entirely, Deus hatched a new idea. Fine, then we'll raid the next village, make up for the loss. As they traveled along the road, Alex, still hoping to change his master's mind, once again floated the idea of returning to the demon realm. The other demon lords are eagerly waiting. They expect your return. But Deus waved him off, uninterested in going back. Trying another approach, Alex offered a different plan. Then how about this? You find a woman here, have a child, and I'll take it back as the next demon lord. Deus froze. If you talk about marriage again, he said through gritted teeth, I'll kill you. There was a brief silence. And then, in a shy voice, Deus asked, could it even be possible? Alex explained the reproductive system and further told him, in your case, it is. Your bloodline is so potent, a mere kiss, or even holding hands could result in pregnancy. Deus's face twisted in disbelief. As if summoned by fate, just then, a woman's scream pierced the air. Help! Someone help me! She cried in desperation. Both turned their heads toward the sound. A woman was being chased by bandits. Alex nudged his master. You should help her. It could lead to something, he suggested with a mischievous grin. But Deus narrowed his eyes. Isn't it strange? There's no forest nearby, no place for bandits to hide. And yet, they've appeared here in broad daylight, and we never even sensed them approaching. Suspicion settled over both of them like a shadow. Something wasn't right.